The headlines across YouTube, Google just broke reality. DeepMind changes everything.
Yep.
Is the game industry over?
No, that's quite literally the expect. So it's not just like some ridiculous headlines. The immediate reaction to this release was that all of the major game publishers and saw stock price drops of like double-digit percentages or close to
Lol.
in the wake of this news. And so everybody's so clearly Wall Street was like, oh, that's it. Games industry is over. It's now going to just live in this one little box, and forever, creative content will be less relevant, and then the ability to generate some artificial universe. And so that's what everybody was going with for a while. That's the big reset. That was the big upset, right? Like the games industry is over because Google did something.
Welcome to Unboxing, Play and Profit for the Gaming Curious. I'm Lane Nooney.
And I'm Joost van Dreunen.
And we're here digging deep on why games matter in today's economy. On the docket today, Thursday, February 5th, Ubisoft strikes, Google wants AI to make games for you, and Amazon retreats from PC and console. All that and more with your two very cold co-hosts, but first, we've got some catching up to do. Joost.
How cold is it there?
Well, I think it's the same cold that it is where you are, because you're not that far away from me.
It's fantastic. What is it? The longest cold snap in New York's history since like 2003, and it's like 15 days straight of just sub 30 Fahrenheit degrees. Unbelievable.
Sub 30 Fahrenheit?
Mm-hmm. That's what I've heard.
It's 33 degrees Fahrenheit right now. Oh, you mean like below 30? Okay, mm-hmm. I'm with you now. I didn't know if you were doing like Celsius math in your head or something.
No, I gave up on that.
How is the Mamdani street cleaning brigade has been all the social media rage on who I follow? How are your streets?
I haven't seen Mamdani clear my street.
He didn't shovel out your car.
He didn't shovel out it. It's been fantastic. It's a big mess. I like that sort of duopoly, or is it the dual image you have, like the wonderful romantic New York Central Park under a fluffy layer of white snow, and have yourself a merry little whatever. And then there is, the gray sludge with
snow piss everywhere.
Snow piss. And then these like mounts of garbage lodged in more snow pit. I mean, it's just, and people are just desperate. So there's barely any traffic because it's just mayhem. Yeah. It's fun. I have a good time. I'm happy that I bought myself some decent boots this season and not sneakers, and I got long johns. So that's a big game changer for me. How are you surviving the cold? I
mean, I stay home.
Yeah.
As much as I can. I live in one of those buildings that it's hot even when you turn the heat off. So,
steam heat.
Yeah. I'm plenty toasty, and so I only have to make it, 3 or 4 blocks in any direction from my house when I go out usually. Mm-hmm. So I'm okay, Do
you have any special routines?
No. It was a bit disappointing. We didn't get a snow day what was it? I guess last week, but had to do my first class on Zoom. But what day do you teach?
Thursday.
You teach Thursdays. You always teach Thursdays.
You had to teach on Zoom?
I had to teach. So my class was on Monday, last Monday. And that was no one, the snow had fallen all day Sunday. Mm-hmm. So the city, I know your kids got, parked in front of their Chromebooks to take class, and I was told that it was a remote learning day. We were going to pivot to remote learning, which is always a great thing to be told. And so I had to give the first real lecture on it's about fire and clay tokens, about like the origins of human communication and accounting practices on Zoom. Left a little bit to be desired, so
I
you know,
like I like how they call it a pivot.
the pivot. We all got to pivot, you
Pivot
know.
always suggests like a turn for the better, like we're moving
They want
into a
us to
new.
be nimble and
Mm,
agile and
mm,
flexible and
mm,
dynamic and fast.
mm.
And I want to say fuck you to that, you know.
Yeah, yeah. I'm deeply skeptical, right? And it's because of the what I would call like a deeply traumatic experience of the remote schooling during the pandemic. So my big kid was at the time like 5, right? And so here he is with his friends, and it's the most lonely dystopian experience for everybody. You hear the birthday song sort of echo through the house as he's the floor below, like sitting with his classmates. This is the saddest thing, whatever. And so yeah, there's some benefit to it. It's like okay, so people work remotely. I do think that there's like that normalization has had some benefit. Like if you are able to work from home Mondays and Fridays and do a bit of laundry and whatever, not waste your entire weekend doing groceries, that would be great, right? So I think that there's some autonomy that you've regained, but then there's a moment when it oversteers. And it, particularly this week was then, of course, the big kid has remote school and they're doing art class and they're sort of, I guess it's like synchronized drawing or something. Like it's like a weird, like how do you do that? But so they all produce it and then we're fully set up because of how I live my life. But so we have a full printer and scanner at home. So I scan it and then I can submit it as opposed to take like an image or whatever. So we have this sort of office equipment lying around. So whatever, we make it work. He's used to it because he came up during the pandemic in this way, and I guess so. But what's really going on is that he's getting robbed of a snow day. And
Yeah.
that I find unforgivable. Like whoever at the DOE wrote that down as laws, like needs to be
Yeah.
voted right off the island because it's just not fair to kids. But worse for parents, right? So as a parent, all of a sudden now you're managing your own remote job responsibility stuff, and then 2 kids at home, and that's was the vexing thing. Like, okay, we lost the first one, fine. That's a beta test of a child, like whatever, you're gonna make all the mistakes. But now I have this perfect little 4-year-old sitting in her bed also doing pre-K remote. You're like, this is asinine. Like shame on everybody. Like why? And I get it. I get it, of course. Like I have to then hold short and like be sort of a reasonable adult, but
It's
I
like,
just
couldn't we
don't.
all just take this less seriously, you know? Yeah.
It's can we just have snow? Like, can we just go to the park and sled? Like, get the sled out, whatever. It's just not a thing. So I have a lot of strong, big feelings about this. It was only one day. I think that was the most forgiving part. They were happy to go to school.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I
That's
I,
nice.
I feel like I need to talk to Mobami, not about snow shoveling, about like the DOE in particular. Like, what is this? Stop it. So that was the
Oh
snow day,
man.
and then the heat is on now, but it's been cold at my house. So I've been making soup,
Mm.
and I've been putting stuff in the oven just to defrost them forever. Like it's been a rough winter, Lane. It's really
Yeah.
like it's just like
Yeah.
s- you know.
Eventually spring will come. You want to talk some news, man?
Yeah, let's talk
What?
about the good things in life.
I don't know how much on this news sheet I'd file under the good news. I think Jesus got the lock on that. I don't know about the rest of this shit, you know. So a little update for ongoing unboxing listeners. This semester we have a research intern. So not only do we have a producer, Keaton, who we sometimes talk about at NYU. So the school that I am in, Steinhardt, named after the glorious sexual harasser and antiquities trader Michael Steinhardt, the Steinhardt School of Education, Culture, and Human Development or some shit, got a big grant. And this is kind of cool to like fund first year students to be able to do research with full-time faculty. So basically it's all paid for. It's like I get everyone gets an 18-year-old to be to do research with them and for them, and they're paid to do it, and it's a learning process for them, and it's a mentoring opportunity for you, and it's all paid for by some rich donor. And so I was like, okay, I'll bite. You know, I didn't know how to turn this into something that would be useful for my research, but I thought, I got a podcast. We can make this work. You know, there was a lot of downward, there was a lot of desire to try and get faculty to take, the interns. And so we have tasked Ian
Mhm.
with telling us the news. And so
No, I love this. A news intern?
so we gave up. We were like, here's lots of websites, here's the kinds of stuff we go for, find us a sampling of 4 or 5 stories that you think are interesting. And it was like, all right, what if we just like take the wheels off, like what's this person think is interesting in the news?
I like
And
no,
actually it's pretty good,
I
you
like
know
the filter. I like this, like a different
yeah,
filter. I
yeah,
think it's a benefit.
yeah. Somebody else's POV who isn't in this stuff, 24/7 is very cool. So we got a little. Are you looking at the document, Yost?
I've been staring at it
Oh,
just in
incredible.
amazement. Just
What is
letters.
the story most interesting to you?
I mean, the big one this week was Project Genie.
Okay, so that is the big story. I couldn't tell. I was like, is this just more bullshit from Google, or is this a real thing? Um,
Well,
and
I
so
mean,
apparently it's the real thing. So the headline that we have is Google releases Project Genie AI tool for creating quote playable worlds that can feature copyrighted IP. This sounds like every hellscape packed into like one line of headline text. So, Project Genie, an experimental model created with Google DeepMind IA, can create playable worlds from simple prompts, but it's facing challenges with copyright and ethical concerns because users can generate interactive content based on existing IP, lack of IP safeguards, likely to face legal scrutiny. Who knows? Yost, what have you? So, okay, so the premise here is just a person with a computer, can go to Project Genie. Is this live? Can anyone do this now?
yes. So it is live, from what I understand, but the um, caveat here is that you first have to be an ultra subscriber.
An
So
ultra subscriber to what?
Google AI Ultra. So $250 a month, only available in the US, and that
Whoa.
means that you can basically, it's prompt based, allows you to generate explorable 3D environments. So you say, "Give me Amsterdam, but I want to be a cow," and then now it generates an Amsterdam-like environment that you as a cow can explore. And it looks and feels a lot like what you would expect a video game to look like, right? It's the kind of thing where you can, with some approximation, recreate like the Zelda environments, or call it the Grand Theft Auto, like these kinds of things, and then walk around in them. I guess interact with them, if you squint, and then that gives you sort of a demo or prototype of what it could be. So a lot of people are sort of weirded out because all of a sudden now we have this consumer level application, which we don't for all these reasons, but and I'll get to that in a second. But so it suggests that, in a moment of nothingness that I usually would spend on TikTok ostensibly, or watching TV, watching Real Housewives, now I can turn to a prompt and say, generate for me XYZ world, and I'm going to just, live out my fantasies in there. Like, it's sort of like this customizable, dare I say, personalized metaverse that just
Ugh.
generates on your computer. Yeah, no, I said it. I'm not afraid. And so it speaks to the imagination, but the economics falls short of that, right? And we'll get
Speaks
to
to
that in a
the
moment.
imagination. All right. So the headlines across YouTube, Google just broke reality.
Yep,
Um,
that's the part.
Google's DeepMind changes everything.
Yep.
Is the game industry over? Uh,
No, no, that's quite literally the expect. So it's not just like some like ridiculous headlines. The immediate reaction to this release was that all of the major game publishers and other game companies, so Take Two Interactive, Roblox, Unity, a big engine maker, obviously, App Loving, which is the best company around user acquisition and marketing and mobile games, all of them saw stock price drops of like double digit percentages or close to
lol.
in the wake of this news. And so everybody's so clearly Wall Street was like, oh, that's it. Games industry is over. It's now going to just live in this one little box. And forever, creative content will be less relevant and then the ability to generate some artificial universe. And so that's what everybody was going with for a while. That's the big reset. That was the big upset, right? Like the games industry is over because Google did something. Now, in
Because
fairness,
all games are like 3D experiences in which you drive a car through a world or
this is
manipulate a three-dimensional wireframe character in
I
a
I don't have to explain this to you. Obviously,
no.
this is like anyone with more than 12 seconds of actual video game exposure understands that this is, of course, you know, it's a bit like what is that? What is that? That carbonated drink, Lacroix,
La Croix?
whatever. It's like I read somewhere. It's like it's as if somebody in another room down the hall says the word strawberry. That's what it tastes like. It's like vaguely like it echoes at a long distance a certain flavor. You're like, I think this is grapefruit. So that's how all this that's the equivalent. It's LaCroix equivalent of a game creation, because for if nothing else, it's like, look, you could play it, but you could get top frame rates of 20 to 24 frames per second, which that's a laughable amount of frames per second. Not and
Yeah,
I'm
but
an
you know how all this stuff goes, right? Everyone's gonna be, well, we'll get more frame rate soon, or it'll just
mm,
keep advancing, or
yep, yep,
you
yep.
know.
That's the thing. It's like, well, the immediate argument is like, well, but imagine this for a tenth of the price in the hands of millions of people. Like, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
that sounds great. Like, I
Mhm.
mean, it's a kind of it's a riff on a kind of Robloxification of game production, right? And so everyone can make their own thing. Everything's a platform.
Mhm.
Um, oh God,
It's so none of this. The idea that companies like Take Two and Unity would be out of business overnight is nuts. This is like, you don't
yeah,
understand how any of this works at all. Ubisoft is having a really hard time. It's another one of these bigger stories, but so this is a company with 17,000 employees that has been doing decades of making immersive experiences and like these worlds for Assassin's Creed, and it's set in like Japan in the 15th century, and it's set in Egypt or whatever. Like they
yeah,
really take an effort
yeah,
to
immaculately researched, yeah, and
whatever,
rendered.
as it's probably the highest standards that we have in the industry to some degree. And they are incapable of making this work for them financially. Like, and so it's like, okay, so this is 17,000 professional people, and so we're going
Interesting.
to have some 12-year-old with a subscription. He's going to outperform, outproduce.
Well,
I
if
think
you
that
don't
that's a
have
stretch.
17,000 employees, I guess there's a premise for the
Hmm.
idea that this is somehow able to capture enough scale
Hmm.
while not costing anything. Although I guess given the resources that this stuff requires,
Hmm.
right? The energy resources, the computational resources, it's hard to see where this God. I mean, my emotional instinct is like, I don't really want to spend time in any of this, but we have generation after generation growing up getting increasingly just kind of anesthetized to the idea that people are supposed to make art, you know?
Hmm.
And they don't like the removal of, I mean, I guess you can argue that these prompts and such are a form of creative expression, but it's and I guess that's the premise, right? Make whatever you can dream. Like like craft skill getting removed from production.
Hmm.
Um, Also that all this energy can be captured by capital, right? Like that just seems like the obvious, the vampiric thirst that, like, capital has for labor. Just whew.
Yeah, so that's I subscribe to. I think it sort of it de-risks a lot of this. It sort of undermines sort of the humans in the part. So I think that that's also not at all what's going to happen because this, sure will it have some impact. It's a bit like, just because like guitars don't cost as much as they did like 500 years ago doesn't mean that everybody's a brilliant musician or should be on stage making music. Like, but oh, have fun, like okay, so for me, this is very much an example of like, okay, there's going to be this abundance of content. Let's say it's like YouTube, where everybody has an iPhone and now they're all filmmakers. Okay, like most of you will amount to nothing. That's okay.
Yeah.
Like, like the
Yeah,
film industry didn't go.
most of it still won't be interesting,
Hmm?
right?
Like, and it might be your little fantasy, right? Like, look, have at it. Go generate your own little Epstein Island, whatever it is that gets you excited.
I mean, that's also like, what are the fucking brakes on this, ugh.
Which brings me to the next part, which is sort of like, copyright is not going to hold short on this, right? I was on a panel with the CEO for the ESA, Stanley, the other day.
Stanley, you're on a first name basis with him now.
Stanley and I were, you meet
You
enough
go
times.
way back.
We go way back to last year, April. He's nice, but he's like, I ran, I mean, we could talk about this too, but it's you see people sort of out of context or in a different context. You're like, oh, okay, I get it now. But so, what he's doing, of course, Stanley Pierre Louis, is organizing Icon, which is very much an IP driven conversation, very much about like, okay, the big holders of intellectual property in the games industry have a lot of interest. You know, my guess would be that they're going to make a fist to say, no thanks, no thank you, this is not allowed. And so there's going to be some natural thing in the same way that like the newspaper business and the film business and blah 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 have all figured out a way to you know make it
Well,
more difficult for the AI companies of the world to do this.
I mean, but it seems like the path that Roblox is already charting through something like this is to create these kind of license, infrastructures that allow you to pay for the right to use this IP in your particular platform, like version of a game on this platform. I mean, that's a solvable problem, from an economic point of view, right? Is that all those IP holders can still get paid while this shit still gets, slurped all over the internet. I'm just like next to your head on my screen. I'm watching this 3.5, almost 4 hour video called "I spent $250 to play awful AI games," and the streamer was saying his gimmick was, "I play until I get my money's worth." Like, I'm playing until I get $250 in donations from people watching this.
the,
And
the
I just
cows come
watched
home.
someone raise a gun to who's the, like, one of the Animal Crossing characters. It's like, oh, this is
Oh,
beautiful
oh, this
culture.
is this is very culture. So culture. I have, yeah. Look, the seduction is always the same, which is, oh, here's a new gizmo, here's a new technology, and everything is going to be different now. I doubt that. I doubt that AI is going to be capable of like generating a world that is as believable, as immersive, as high quality as what we've seen even like years ago in the games industry, like a Red Dead Redemption 2. That game is
Yeah.
old as Methuselah, and at the same that it holds up, right? Methuselah is very old. It's a
Is
it's
that
not
a
a,
demon? Is that a devil? Yeah.
it's some kind of biblical character from what I remember.
So
And,
that
but
even, I mean, yeah, like we can, the kind of the runway on the pursuit of graphical fidelity had already run dry. Now is the only interesting thing that we all get to make our own or something, or like, what is this thing's concept of a game?
it makes a lot of claims, and it is pregnant with promise, but it does not immediately.
Pregnant with promise. Okay.
I mean, look, that's what I mean. It speaks to the imagination, right? It's like, do you also want to have this infinity machine? Of course. That's not how it's go. What I think it will do is like create a lot of assets and like solidify the position of existing, like of the incumbents, right? Like the unities of
Yeah,
the world will benefit from this,
yeah.
because where do you go? How do you differentiate? How do you navigate as a consumer? All these things, like what stories will be told, right? Will Take Two Interactive eventually allow you to use some of their assets to create your own little GTA slash NYU world? Sure, right? We can whatever, like
Oh,
render
you
it.
mean I could relive my university mandated active shooter training?
Yes.
Uh,
Are you excited about this? That is
not
so
based on what
dark.
I. Not based on. Did you have to take that
No,
as an adjunct? No, they didn't make you take it.
I'm signed up for something. I'm signed up, but yeah, I get these notifications, but it's always like some video that
Yeah,
you.
yeah. So NYU. This is the first year it ever happened. We had a mandatory active shooter training. And it
Mm,
was usually with these videos, I have to take these videos all the time. There's like a sexual harassment one and a cybersecurity one. And there was one that had to tell me that, like, because of the Supreme Court, we're no longer allowed to think about race when we look at graduate applications, right? And they're always kind of made by what looks like some sort of third party slop company just making an interactive set of PowerPoint slides. The active shooter training was filmed in NYU buildings. You can tell because they walk by NYU nameplates. Are you now looking through your email for this? And it's very
maybe.
dire. They're like, it was, I mean, it was like in the event of an active shooter training, you have three options: escape if you can, hide if you can't, or be ready to fight for your life. And I was just
Yo.
And I mean, it's just like they're like, you should always be aware of your surroundings and know, like, there's like video footage of people like going inside a cupboard, and or like inside drawers, and you can tell they're the same kind of university because, right, all of the bookshelves and shelving looks like the stuff in your offices. There's a clip of like when they say prepare, look for unusual weapons, and there's someone in a science lab holding a scalpel. Tips on you can, if you have a hinge over your door, wrap your belt around it so the shooter can't open the door to the room you're in. I was just like, this is there. Sorry.
Listen. I yeah. I mean, it's terribly depressing, and then despite all of this like training around sexual harassment and active shooter drills, like no fucking snow days. So let's train for that. Let's like when's the carnival? So I feel in many ways like you know NYU has to. They don't. They're sort of like
Or I mean, just the vibrant contradictions around this. When was the only time I was ever confronted by someone with a gun at the university? It was when my university was having me arrested. So like,
mm,
you know,
well, there's that part.
uh,
It's
cool
so many.
stuff.
I so when it comes to generating fantasy environments using AI, I can think of a variety of explorations that are going to go off the rails right away. I mean, and so I find this always like it seems so odd, so contradictory to me that if this was the same conversation we had about the metaverse. The companies building the technologies for the metaverse are the dominant tech and consumer electronic companies today. It's not in their interests to go out of their way to give you something that's new, novel, disruptive of their existing business. They just want to get there first before everybody else does. And as a result, it will be totally squeaky clean. This is exactly why you have these like synthetic, artificial sexual harassment videos that you have to watch every semester for an hour. And it's like Bill talks to Jim. Jim says, "Hey," and it's like, I mean, it's like it's not even like high school grade conversation, but it's just a box to check, and so
Yeah.
it becomes this.
Jim showed you his penis. Was that sexual harassment? True or false? It's like,
But
sorry.
that's a I don't know. It depends. It's all contextual. Like you know,
It's,
you,
I don't know if that's the answer. Oh
you
wow, we're
know,
gonna get good thing we're not monetized,
we're
so we can't
getting
get demonetized. But I
maybe
did get
maybe we'll get monetized. Put
I
it
did
put
get
temperature.
the community sanity alarm, which is
Oh,
we're just trying to set a little reminder to transition to the next segment. We're keeping this episode a little tight, a little light. Everyone's a little busy this week, so we got through one story. That's fine.
That's fine. That's a good one.
But we thought, long time listeners, as I like to say, know about. We usually wrap with pons and ons, and we were like, is there something new we could do that might be a little more fun than us just finding another news story to talk about? And I teach video game economies in the fall when you're also teaching business of video games in the spring. Right now, I'm teaching history of media. So I don't have exit tickets, but you still do. And so I thought maybe you could share one of the exit tickets from your class, and we could jam about that for a hot minute. And
Let's jam about that. And then I also have, if we have time, the survey results.
We do not have time for survey results, but we could definitely talk about them next week.
Survey results have been...
I'm just gonna... You had survey results this whole time, and I'm talking about the NYU active shooter training.
It did not show up in the survey. Okay, so let's talk about this exit ticket. So one that stood out to me. So the first class that's sort of meaty is digitalization of entertainment. And we talk about like, how is it that companies fail or succeed in these moments when the fundamentals of their economic model just transition from one thing to the next. And so particularly from a physical model to a digital model, how do you do well? Who are the winners and losers? Who was lagging behind and died? Who was there first and figured it out? And so one of the, and so we go through a range of examples, and I showed them a bunch of numbers on how that transition takes place, not just in games, but also in music and film. And so one of the natural questions that usually comes up is along the same lines here, which is, what are you, a student asking, what are your thoughts on classic game titles that tried making remakes that are free to play, but flop? Like, for instance, Plants vs. Zombies. I thought that would be a good question for you, right? So Plants vs. Zombies was a premium game. I think it was $20 or $40.
Did they refer to that as a retro game?
A remake.
Can you read the question again? I just like...
What are your thoughts on classic game titles that tried making remakes that are free-to-play monetization flop? Or free-to-play monetization flop? Like
classic game. Okay, so first of all, just for my heart rate, are we saying that Plants vs. Zombies is a classic game? Mm-hmm. Incredible. I love the youth. Okay, sorry. I just had to like bend the arc of my mind around this question, right?
As a historian,
I was like, I'm getting a meaty historical question, and then I was like,
classic games like Plants vs.
So Plants vs. Zombies. What is that? First platforms on
PC,
but it's like Flash based, right? Or
no, it was an executable.
It was an executable. No, it was published by PopCap. Mm-hmm. And so it comes out in 2009.
I mean, distant history.
Yeah. I mean,
it's just
classic games. And so sold for a purchase price, and then gets repackaged as a free to play mobile game, basically. Mm-hmm. And the question is just like, what do you think about that?
Yeah, so they get repackaged as free to play, but it fails. And so, what are your thoughts around that? Like, I guess there's no real protagonist here. But
so the question is sort of like, this is an example of a game that attempted to kind of meet its moment and couldn't, right? Or attempted to like respond to changing economic circumstances, and it kind of unraveled, right? What do I think about that? So I think one of the things is that games that you have to, in the mobile ecology as it exists today, which is like super concentrated and very tailored for the free to play experience, the game has to be built, it has to have its like design loop built for free to play kind of from the start. Trying to graft free to play, or like extra monetization onto a game that was really designed to be single price point doesn't work particularly well. I think I don't know what in-game monetization looked like in Plants vs Zombies, but I bet it interfered with core, uh, you know, probably core play loops, the way progression felt, right?
Hmm.
Like I bet that, if it was just a pure port with free to play monetization slapped on top of it, then that's a failure of imagination, right? That's an executive making a decision at the spreadsheet level saying, can we milk anything out of this if now I charge you, 50 coins for a hat for your zombie, and you're like, I can't believe it didn't go gangbusters. Or, even worse, if what they're doing is putting, ways of game scaling or advancement behind like price points. That's what I'd say. I'd have to look at the differences in play and where monetization's happening, but that would be my guess. What do you think?
Yeah, I think it's a good question. And it's a and it's precisely. I mean, it's kind of why it's one of the major threads in the class, which is what works in one market or one set of rules does not necessarily work in the other, and as you try to retool it, often these things break. So Plants vs Zombie, which as an executable, is just like a premium game, to put it that way. You just play, and it was just about puzzling, this sort of desktop defender kind of game. The second you make it so that now I have to pay for like beefed up plants, or I have to like
Yeah,
earn coins,
yeah,
you're adding this meta structure to it, and it pushes the game into the meta part. But that wasn't what the game was about. That wasn't why people liked the game. And so you're changing the gravity point. And you can do that well, you can do that poorly, you can do that quickly or gradually. It kind of doesn't matter in that you run a chance of alienating the fan base. And I think that that's what they did. Like they tried to retool Plants vs Zombies to accommodate free to play monetization, effectively imposing free to play as an afterthought rather than baked in from the beginning, thereby just turning the audience against them, saying like, yeah, you broke it. It was fun before, and now it's not fun anymore because it's all about spending, or you've rejiggered the mechanics in such a way that it just doesn't go well for me anymore. I don't enjoy this anymore.
yeah,
These paywalls are very prohibitive. It's I will always admit, be the first to admit, like, I like single player games because first of all I suck at multiplayer at this point. I also don't like having to do all this math. I just want to have a good time, and so free to play pushes it into that, right? It's a relevant piece to the game experience, and sort of you sit on top of all this math and all this monetization, and then you do this other
yeah.
stuff. It's not super exciting, and transitioning it that is incredibly risky thing to do, and it's a really good example of it. So to call this a classic game is perhaps, you know,
Well,
it's a
that's
hard thing for
that's
me.
just like, that's an error of perspective. That's
Well, I think that that's worthy of a conversation on its own, you know, because where does that put like King's Quest or whatever? But it's a you know, but that's another episode.
right.
But it's a good example of how game companies try to accommodate new mechanics, trendy things, and it just
Yeah,
doesn't
they
work.
they they follow they follow a trend and maybe don't. That's why I said it feels like the idea hatched at an executive level, right? Because to make a game like that work for free to play, I think you'd really have to design it for free to play.
Hmm.
And that basically means you're making a different game with that is kind of in the spirit
Hmm.
and with the IP of Plants vs Zombies. Yost, we do have to wrap it up because we're keeping everything light and cute this season on unboxing. We're trying not to do too much, right?
Agreed.
How did
Also,
it?
I'm frozen, so I'm, like I only have so many moments of warm breath in me. No, I just go for that. I do think that this semester, taking a lighter brush to everything will be good. It feels like what we haven't talked about is the 16,000 people laid off at Amazon, and there's all this
Oof.
news coming out because it's January, February. I'm about to hit Dice next week in Vegas. And then it's like, South by Southwest and GDC. And guess what's going to
GDC.
be a big topic? It's going to be layoffs and the industry being sideways or whatever. And it's all true. And also, that can't be the only thing we discuss, right? And so I feel
Yeah.
like I don't want to get stuck into that too much. These are relevant topics, important
Yeah. Just
topics.
reporting on all the stuff we already know sucks. So,
Yeah, that's it. So we're not going to do that. It's really about
all
the
right.
enjoyment and the conversation that we have around it. So
All right.
I have
Amazing.
more news next week for you. There's a lot of stuff
Incredible.
happening.
Incredible. A lot of stuff happening. We'll talk about a fraction of it. If you enjoy listening to us banter, just like and subscribe, All right. Thank you all for listening. Good night and good game. Unboxing, Play and Profit for the Gaming Curious is an independent production by Joost van Joinen and Lane Nooney. Our producer is Keaton Ireland. Our logo was designed by Moira Zhang. For more from Unboxing, subscribe to our newsletter at buttondown.com/unboxingpodcast. Unboxing episodes can be found on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcast, and wherever else you get your content.